Hello, how are you doing today? Um, in this video, let's talk about some bills that a human being can live without. So, obviously, a lot of people, almost everyone, pay a lot of bills. There are so many bills that people have to pay for. The list just goes on, like starting from what? Water, gas, electricity. Um, and then telephones, cars. There's just so many bills, and the list goes on and on. So I'm just trying to think of any bills that that thing is, do we have to pay all the bills that exist? Do we have to actually have these services installed and then we're paying all these bills? Are there any bills that humans can live without, and you're just fine, you're okay? um, so I've come up with few. So for example, when it comes to telephone bills, um, most people have mobile phones, so mobile phone contracts. And so we're paying if you have a mobile phone contract, you end up paying a monthly bill for it until the contract has ended. And even when the contract has ended, you get to keep the mobile phone, but I think you still have, if you want, if it's a smartphone and you want internet on it, you still have to get to pay some monthly fees to get the internet on it. um, but it's cheaper compared to paying contracts. The monthly fee for contracts is cheaper. That is more expensive than when you have finished your contract and now you're just paying for the internet, to have internet on your phone. And then you have other people who have, they're paying for the mobile phone, and at the same time they're paying for a landline phone. So obviously, I think most people know what landline is. A landline phone is just a phone that stays in the house. It's not mobile. You can't take it anywhere with you. It just stays in the house. And so some people will be paying for both a mobile phone bill and a landline bill as well. So in this case, if you're really struggling with money, then it makes sense to have just one of those bills. So either just have a mobile phone contract bill to pay for and not have a landline, or have a landline and not have a mobile phone. Because unless you really really need both, a mobile phone and a landline, if you really need them both, then it makes sense to keep both. But if you don't need both and you're really struggling with money, then it makes sense to only keep one. Another bill that one can survive without, I guess I think it just depends on where you live, which country you live in. Everyone need water, so we're gonna you're gonna have to pay for water bills, unless you live in a place where, I don't know, water is for free for some reason. But yeah, water is you got to pay. Everyone has to pay for water, and because it's needed, and electricity as well. Again, in extreme cases, say for example you live in I don't know, some village somewhere where there's no running water, there's no electricity. I mean, some people do still survive in places where there's no water, no electricity, um, and they still survive. They still like fetch water from streams or rivers, and they for electricity they just use, I don't know, they use lanterns to just for light. And when it comes to cooking, they don't, because they don't have electricity, so they're not going to use cookers and stuff like that, because these need electricity to work. So they'll use like a firewood, or charcoal, to start fire, and then you can cook that way. So it is true that obviously people can survive on less bills. um and then like other things, like you can have electricity, but you can also save money on electricity if you just live a traditional life, like if you live, like, say, for people who live in the woods, they don't really need, they have a kitchen, but they don't use things like washing machine to wash clothes. So they just wash clothes with their own hands, and anything that need washing, they just use their own hands to wash. They don't really use dishwashers, and so they wash their own dishes with hands. um Even like when it comes to like warming up food, like, some people would use microwave to warm up the foods. They don't have a microwave, so how do they warm up the food? Again, it's just that they use this, the way they will cook the food on a firewood or charcoal. They use the same thing to heat up the foods, leftover foods. Like say like making a cup of tea. They don't, if they don't have a kettle, they still can make a cup of tea. They just, again, the way they normally cook the food, they just boil water that way and make their own cup of tea. So all these things, like, like kitchen appliances, like I mentioned, washing machine, dishwasher, kettle, microwave, all these appliances, they are really good and they make life easier. So if you can afford to have them all, it's great, because it makes things, you can get things done faster, and it's they're very nice. But if you can't afford any of them, and you can barely afford to pay for electricity, then you don't, you can't have them. And if you can't have them, then it does save electricity a little bit on a, electric bill is saved. And some people don't even have fridges or freezers, so you can imagine how they store their foods. They have ways to store food without using fridge or freezer. So I think in this case it'll be a case of eating food in one day within 24 hours. So if meals are cooked, they're eaten in that day, and any leftover are eaten the next day, and that's it. So they have to cook a whole new meal. So there's no like storing food that needs to go in the fridge or freezer. No, the only food they'll store, it will be anything like dry food that don't need to go, like onions don't need fridge or freezer, so they can just go in the cupboards. Just dry foods like that. And that's just how they live their lives. So you can imagine electric bills is very low if they choose to have electricity. So these are just a few ways one can save money on bills, and people still survive. The only difference is, and other people don't even use the car at all. They don't have a car, so they walk everywhere. You know, going to work, they just walk. They don't mind walking. Well, they do mind, because obviously over time it becomes a chore, and it'll be nice to have a transport. But if you can't afford to have a car, because cars are expensive, it's not just a case of buying a car and that's it. You still have to pay for petrol or diesel to run it. You still have to maintain it and pay for maintenance, take it to the garage. If it's broken, get it fixed. You have to pay for road tax. You got to pay for road tax. What's the other one? Insurance. You got to be insured to that car, so you pay that for that. So cars, there are so many bills around just owning a car. So if you can't afford any of those, you just have to walk everywhere. You walk to work, going and back. You walk the kids to school, and you walk them back. And obviously in this case, you're gonna the kids will be going to a school closer to your house, so the kids don't have to walk along for a long time. Or you pay for public transport, like a bus, something like that, so you can get onto the bus with the kids, take them to school, and the same way back home. Going shopping, again, you just walk to the shop, buy what you need to buy, carry them, find ways to carry your groceries, and come back home by walking. So it is a tough life living that way. It saves a bit of money, on bills, but it's very tough, versus having all these appliances, owning a car and stuff like that, which save time, effort, and it just makes life easier. But it means you have lots of bills piled up. So you just get ready to work harder and pay and earn more money to keep up with the bills. So these are just few things. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.